there again, YouTube. It is once again I, your ghostly host with the most, Knox Burzum, back to bring you more blasphemous banter from beyond the grave. Much like Sesame Street, I'm bringing you musical knowledge one letter of the alphabet at a time. And in that spirit, we come to the letter C. Today, C is for Children of fucking Bodom. Roll that intro.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
I feel so good. I feel so good.
Children of Bodom was the second melodic death metal band I ever discovered, preceded only by In Flames in 2003, thanks to the Freddy vs. Jason soundtrack. You see, when I first started college, I was actually an English major. My mother, and to a lesser extent my father, since he never stood up for me in this discussion, basically decided I was going to school to receive an education degree. I had originally been interested in pursuing something in either video game development or pursuing a career in the media/music production world, which ironically 3 years later is what I ended up doing anyway, because it's my fucking life and I get to make the decisions sometimes. Okay? Awesome. My very first trimester at North Central College in Illinois, I was given the opportunity to take an introduction to radio course, as well as being forced to immediately take college algebra. Two guesses as to which one I passed, and only gonna need one. But I digress. Because of my college algebra course, I met my college radio mentor, Charles Gatz. Charles Gatz looked a lot like Sonny from POD, if Sonny was thinner, significantly lighter skinned, and had a terrible fucking unibrow. Charles was actually a double math and psych major. The man was then, and probably still is today, smarter than I'm ever going to fucking be. It ended up being that Charles wasn't just my math tutor. He also ended up being my guide into the world of radio for the first trimester. And it only took us a few sessions of math for him to decide to initiate me into that most secret of the college coming-of-age activities. You ain't stoned as hell, kids! Well, I loved it. And quite soon, he and a friend of his took me under their wings and introduced me to the world of extreme and foreign metal. It's in fact because of them that I know of Children of Bodom, Nightwish, Cradle of Filth, Therion, Dream Theater, a ton of fucking music that frankly I would have never gotten into otherwise. A boy never forgets his first time with a good thing, and COB was no exception. I was stoned as hell the night that Charles first put on Silence Night, Bodom Night, from their second finger-shredding album, Hate Breeder. Ever seen a three-man mosh pit break out in the middle of a radio booth? Well, I sure have. Good times. Well, now that pleasantries are over, back to Encyclopedia Satanica. Ha! I crack myself up. Any hoosers. So, Children of Bodom was a melodic death metal band from Espoo, Finland. They were originally conceived as a band in Earth and broke up in late 2019. Their final band lineup consisted of Alexi Laiho as lead guitarist, vocals, songwriter, and music writer, Jaska Ratikainen on drums, Hinka Sepada on bass guitar, Jan Verman on keyboards, and Daniel Freiberg on rhythm guitar. The band released 10 studio albums, 2 live albums, 2 EPs, 2 compilation albums, 1 DVD, and a partridge in a pear tree. The band's third studio album, Follow the Reaper, was their first album to receive a gold certification in Finland, and subsequent studio albums acquired the same status. Their next 4 albums debuted at number 1 on the Finnish album charts, and have also seen chart positions on the United States Billboard Top 200. They are one of Finland's best-selling artists of all time, with more than 250,000 records sold there alone, which is fairly impressive. In 2019, Children of Bodom unfortunately held their last concert before disbanding. Laiho and Freiberg carried on as Bodom After Midnight in late 2020. Children of Bodom originally began in 1993 as the band In Earth, which was created by Alexi Wildchild Laiho and childhood friend Jaska Ratikainen, who was the drummer at the time. They had both grown up together sharing a passion for music, especially death metal bands. such as Obituary, Dissection, Cannibal Corpse. You get the idea. But there were also classic metal influences on them, such as Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, Dio, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, and things like that. Bassist Samuli Mittinen was added as their third musketeer, and in August of that same year, Inearth put out their first demo, which was Implosion of Heaven. Samuli was actually the band's main lyricist and songwriter for the first 2 years of their existence. Unfortunately for him, his family moved to the United States in 1995, making it absolutely impossible for him to stay in the band. In fact, his final contributions to Children of Bodom, as it were the lyrics behind the band's second demo, Ubiquitous Absence of Remission, which was the first time that they had worked with producer Antti Kipo at Astia Studios in Lappeenranta, Finland. At the time, Raatikainen played French horn, believe it or not, in a local big band. This is how he met fellow band member Alexander Kuopala, who played trumpet at the time. Shortly after recording their second demo, Kuopala was invited to join Inearth as their rhythm guitarist. The bassist chosen to replace Samuli was Hinka Blacksmith Sepala, who both Alexi and Jaska had actually known through school. Along with playing bass, he also doubled as the backing vocalist for the band. They then recruited a full-time keyboardist by the name of Jani Perioski. Both joined Inearth in 1996. With their lineup completed, Inearth decided that it was time to record a third demo. This was of course sent out to a whole bunch of labels, however, no one took any kind of interest in it, and it basically went into a vault somewhere. Despite their best efforts, in fact, they stayed basically local musicians. And as a last resort, the band decided to pool their money together and produce an independent first album. At this point, Alexi wanted to start using the keyboards more effectively in the band. However, Perioski was not really showing up to practices. Due to this, he was fired, and a friend of Raatikainen's named Jan Warman Verman was added to the mix. Believe it or not, he's actually a professional jazz pianist. Verman was the component that Inearth was missing, and with him on board, they were able to produce the sound that would later on characterize Children of Bodom. It was around this time that they ended up changing their name to Children of Bodom and would create their 1997 debut album, Something Wild. This album was supposed to be released by a small Belgian label called Shiver Records. Shortly after Inearth signed this contract, though, it would be brought to the attention of the boss of Spine Farm Records, who wanted to give them a nationwide release. The latter deal was a much more lucrative and appealing option to the band, seeing as how the Belgian label was offering them little to no assistance whatsoever. In fact, Shiver was offering them so little assistance on the whole, distribute and sell the record all on their own, which basically is a shit deal. The band was asked to find a new name in order to officially be signed under Spine Farm Records, though, as the contract with Shiver had already been signed under the name Inearth. The answer to this quandary came as the members looked through the local phone book, believe it or not. When they stumbled upon Lake Bodom, they realized that they had found the name with an interesting story behind it and with deep impact in the name itself. A long list of possible names involving the word Bodom was then made, and they settled on Children of Bodom. The band's name is derived from the Lake Bodom murders. Their very first real LP, Something Wild, ended up being fully produced and recorded by Antti Kipo and Children of Bodom themselves at Astia Studios. In an attempt to promote their band, they opened a show for Dimmu Borgir in 1997. This ended up working out really well for them. Their success at this one show was great enough that a representative from Nuclear Blast Records ended up seeking them out and offering them a contract which would begin this next subsequent year for release and exposure across the European markets. In fact, Something Wild was released in Finland in 1997 and then worldwide in 1998. And in early 1998, as an almost purely promotional move, they created their first real music video for the song Dead Night Warrior. The video was directed by Mike Lindberg and had a slim budget of only about 1,000 euros. It made use of simple scenery, which consisted essentially of an outdoors location directly after a huge snowstorm. The band played for a couple of hours at night, with an average temperature of minus 15 degrees Celsius. Cold. Although Laiho is very critical of all the music he has written, he particularly dislikes Something Wild on the Whole. When recording the album, Alexi had tried to mimic his, essentially, idol, Yngwie Malmsteen, which is also why Something Wild is considered to be one of the most technical albums that Children of Bodom ever produced. Despite his deep distaste for the album, it remains one of their most iconic pieces of work, and one of their most important, as it was actually the one that put them on the map, so to speak. Children of Bodom's first real European tour began in February of 1998. They played alongside such bands as Hypocrisy, and The Covenant, and Agatho Daemon. Unfortunately, they suffered due to the lack of Vermin, who was at the time going to school and finishing up his studies. He was replaced for the duration of the tour by pianist Erna Sikavirta. I honestly have no idea if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I'll put it up on screen for you. Months later, the band would record 2 new singles, again with producer Anssi Kipo. The songs Towards Dead End and their namesake Children of Bodom, the latter of which was included on a compilation disc from Spine Farm Records. And once Children of Bodom hit Finnish airwaves, it would stay on the Finnish top 10 list for 8 consecutive weeks. Their second European tour took place in September of that same year. For whatever reason, Vermin was still unable to attend the tour, and so Laiho's at-the-time girlfriend, Kimberly Goss, who had formerly been in bands such as Therion, Dimmu Borgir, and was in the band Synergy at the time, assumed the role as keyboardist. By the end of that tour, she had asked Alexi if he would like to join Synergy with her. Obviously, he ended up turning that down. The second album, Hate Breeder, was recorded between the end of 1998 and the beginning of 1999, again by producer Anssi Kipo at Astia Studios once again. It was originally entitled Towards Dead End, but while in studio, the members of the band opted for the current title of Hate Breeder. To create anticipation in Finland, the Downfall single was released 2 weeks prior to the album's release. It was accompanied by a new music video, once more directed by Mika Lindberg. Hate Breeder ultimately topped the charts in many European countries. In July of 1999, the success of the Downfall single and Hate Breeder allowed Children of Bodom to schedule 3 concerts in Japan with Synergy and In Flames. During 2 of these concerts, the live album Tokyo War Hearts was recorded. I happen to have a copy of it. It is a fantastically produced album. Take a listen if you ever get the chance. In it, the band managed to seamlessly reproduce and at times improve on their songs. At their request, no overdubs were used on the recording of the concert. For their next release, Children of Bodom decided to utilize Peter Tagerton's studio in Sweden. The band wrote 8 songs for Follow the Reaper, and at the end of it were even able to add in 1 more bonus track, which Alexi put together very hastily in only a few minutes. This would come to be known as Kissing the Shadows. The band christened the album Follow the Reaper. Again, pretty fucking metal. And the recording sessions took place between August and September of 2000. So essentially, in 8 weeks' time, they pumped out an entire album. That's pretty fucking good if you ask me. In February 2002, Children of Bodom re-entered the studio to create their third masterpiece, Hate Crew, Death Roll. Again, much like with Hate Breeder, the sessions lasted only from August through September of 2002, and by January of 2003, Hate Crew Death Roll was on shelves. Hate Crew Death Roll only stayed on the top of Finnish charts for 3 weeks this time. However, it was also their first album to be declared gold, and Follow the Reaper eventually went platinum. Every album by Children of Bodom has subsequently gone minimum of gold. On January 3rd, 2003, the Finnish Metal Music Awards were held at Tavastia Club in Helsinki. Voting was open to all the metal fans and was presented through various media outlets that were working with the event's organizers. Children of Bodom was awarded Finnish Band of the Year, just to give you an idea of how popular these guys are. Children of Bodom's first world tour began in late 2003 and lasted until late 2004. The tour had many sold-out concert dates and ended up with the consolidation of Children of Bodom in North America. Unfortunately, it was capped off by a very strange announcement: the decision of Kuopala to leave the band very unexpectedly. In an interview, Laiho was asked about Kuopala's leaving the band. He had this to say about it, quote, "I try to be careful about what I say about him because there is no bad blood between us. He told me that he just got sick of touring and the whole band rock and roll lifestyle, living in hotels and tour buses and stuff like that. For me, it was really weird because he was always the one who was so into it. He was a diehard rock and roller, and suddenly he made a quick 180 turn in his whole life. This situation, I think, stems from him having a new girlfriend." Alexi's bandmate from Synergy, Rupi Latvala, was given the option of coming and being at least a session player for the tour. The formation was first introduced to the public in Moscow. After finishing the world tour with Latvala, who then assumed a permanent position in the band's lineup, Children of Bodom proceeded to record and release the EP Trashed, Lost, and Strung Out, which contained songs from their upcoming album and a parody cover of "Oops, I Did It Again" by Britney Spears. In late 2005, the album Are You Dead Yet was released, featuring a style different from what had been presented by the band on its previous works. Simpler and heavier guitar riffs were incorporated into Children of Bodom's sound, as well as elements from industrial music. Reactions from fans to the release were varied. However, the album remains the band's most commercially successful. It was awarded gold status in Finland and reached first place on the Finnish charts, 16th in Germany, 16th in Sweden, and 17th in Japan. The next release of the band was a DVD single for the song In Your Face, which included a music video, backstage footage, and other bits of trivia from the band and a live recording of the song Six Pounder at Wacken Open Air Festival in 2004. Children of Bodom's live DVD, Chaos-Ridden Years, Stockholm Knockout, was released on December 5th, 2006, and contains over 90 full minutes of blistering energy-filled metal. Chaos-Ridden Years refers to a documentary which was made about the band and refers to excerpts from it, and contains snippets of the tour and of their work behind the scenes. It also contains every music video Children of Bodom had ever made up to that point, of course, except for Needle 24/7, which is quite possibly the best song that they ever made, at least at that point. Alexi was then voted World's Best Guitarist of 2006 by Metal Hammer magazine, so good for him. Things were going very well for the band by this point, and in June of 2006 they embarked on their biggest tour yet, the Unholy Alliance Tour. They were with Slayer, Lamb of God, Mastodon, In Flames, and Thine Eyes Bleed. They toured the US extensively that year through June and July, ending up in Europe through October and November. In January of 2007, unfortunately, Alexi slipped down a bowling alley lane after having stepped just over the foul line. He slid and slammed very hard into a wall, breaking his left shoulder, rendering him completely unable to play guitar for at least 6 full weeks. This, of course, caused them to have to sit out the first leg of a 2007 tour, including a date at a festival they were supposed to headline. Luckily, in March of 2007, it was announced on the band's website that Alexi's shoulder had healed mostly. I mean, some wounds can't heal all the way, and this was unfortunately the case with Alexi's arm. However, it would no longer impede him from playing, and they had in fact written new material and would be going back into the studio later in 2007. From October through December of 2007, Children of Bodom were in the studio recording their next studio album, Blood Drunk. This album contains 10 tracks of blistering melodic death metal, including a rather interesting cover of Ghost Riders in the Sky. They were then slated to appear on the North American 2007 Gigant Tour, along with Megadeth, In Flames, Job for a Cowboy, and High on Fire. Children of Bodom was one of the very first bands to be confirmed for Wacken Open Air 2008. They appeared there alongside such other bands as Iron Maiden, Sonata Arctica, and Avantasia. On March 8th, 2008, Children of Bodom had their first signing event in London on Oxford Street at Zavi's Music Shop, where they signed copies of their new single, Blood Drunk, on CD, 7-inch, and 12-inch vinyl. Fun fact for all you metalheads, only 666 copies of the 12-inch vinyl have been made to this date. Fucking metal. June of 2008 would see COB play their first show in Auckland, with support from local scenesters Dawn of Azazel and Subtract at the Transmission Room. That year, they would also re-release their first 3 studio albums, as well as Tokyo Warhearts, in a remastered format, along with extra bonus tracks. In September and October of that year, they ended up touring the US to support Blood Drunk, along with fellow heavy metalers The Black Dahlia Murder and Between the Buried and Me. Testament would also make a special guest appearance for the more important of the 2 guest star slots on their New York City tour date. From November through December of 2008, COB would find themselves on a supporting tour for Slipknot and Machine Head going through Europe. Early January through late March of 2009 would see them pushing through on a co-headlining tour with Cannibal Corpse, being supported by a band called Diablo. In April of 2009, Children of Bodom embarked on the No Fear Energy Tour, headlined by Lamb of God, with main support from As I Lie Dying and themselves, rotating opening slots with the band God Forbid and Municipal Waste. They had to drop off the tour a week before it was finished following a serious injury Alexi suffered after falling from the top bunk of his tour bus on April 26, 2009, after the show in Palladium Ballroom, Dallas, Texas. In addition to the injury, on May 8th of 2009 at Roseland Ballroom in New York City, Alexi and Children of Bodom were forced to quit playing entirely after a few of their songs due to Alexi's previous injury. Laiho originally had planned to continue touring despite his injury, but was forced to cancel the last 6 dates of the tour when any efforts to alleviate the pain failed. All summer festival dates went down as planned and were unaffected by Alexi's injury. In February of 2009, Children of Bodom hinted at plans to release a cover album entitled Skeletons in the Closet, which, by the way, is actually a pretty great album. They also admitted to being, quote, lazy when it comes to practicing and talking about plans to have more songs on future albums. On October 18th, 2009, 4 days after the band's last North American tour date in Honolulu, Hawaii, they performed at Japan's Loud Park Festival, along with Slayer, Judas Priest, Anthrax, Rob Zombie, and Arch Enemy. In the 6 days following their performance at Loud Park Festival, they did 3 tour dates in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China, respectively. They finished their 2-month-long tour in Moscow, Russia, finally bringing their 18-month-long Blood Drunk World Tour to a nice, tight end. Relentless, Reckless Forever would be Children of Bodom's next outing. After the Blood Drunk tour had ended, the band immediately went into the studio to start working on their next album, you see. These guys are workaholics. They love being in the studio or out on tour. That's their life. During the recording of the drum tracks, however, there was an actual tornado that cut off power temporarily to the studio and pushed back their recording all the way until after another miniature tour with Black Label Society. Skeletons in the Closet was a cover album released by Bodom in 2009. It featured every one of their previous covers and 4 new cover tracks. The covered artists included Suicidal Tendencies, Britney Spears, Alice Cooper, Iron Maiden, Slayer, Andrew W.K., Billy Idol, and The Scorpions. Children of Bodom featured a contest to promote their new album in which people could win prizes featuring an ESP Limited M53 electric guitar, the band's entire back catalog, and Skeletons in the Closet. The contest ran from August through September of 2009. The winners were announced on September 28th of 2009. In November of 2010, the band announced that they would be running the Ugly World Tour 2011. It would be running from March through May of 2011 and would have multiple tour dates through the UK and in Europe. Opening acts were Incepharum, Machine Supremacy, and In the UK, lucky motherfuckers, Amon fucking Amarth. Children of Bodom then released the name of the first 3 tracks from their album. They would be Pussyfoot Miss Suicide, Ugly, and Was It Worth It? A mere year after the release of Relentless Reckless Forever, Children of Bodom got bored, went into the studio, and made their 8th studio album. Halo of Blood. It was released in the summer of 2012. Music journalist Neil Kelly of Pop Matters said in praise of the album, death metal could very well re-enter the mainstream consciousness through Halo of Blood, the most accessible Children of Bodom release yet. This time it took about 2 years for Children of Bodom to get bored playing the same songs. In April of 2015, they announced that they'd be going into the studio to work on their follow-up to Halo of Blood. In May of 2015, the band announced the unfortunate departure of Rupi Latvala, and it was announced that Jan Verman's little brother, Antti Verman, would be taking over, temporarily at least, as rhythm guitarist. He would not, however, be a permanent fixture of the band and was not used in the recording process. In fact, this was the only album during which Children of Bodom acted as a 4-piece instead of a 5-piece. Antti came out with them on tour for I Worship Chaos, and that was about it. Fast forward to June 8th of 2015, and I Worship Chaos was officially released through Nuclear Blast Records, the second best record label in the world in my opinion, preceded only by Napalm Records. On January 19th, 2016, it was announced that Daniel Freyberg would be taking a permanent residence as the band's rhythm guitarist and replacing Rupe. On November 1st, 2019, it was officially announced that the then current lineup of Children of Bodom would be playing a final gig together called a chapter called Children of Bodom. This was done on December 15th at the Helsinki Ice Hall, with a statement reading, after almost 25 years with Bodom, thousands of shows, and 10 albums, Henka, Jan, and Jaska have decided to step back and change direction within their lives. Alexi and Daniel will have further announcements about their plans to keep creating new music in the future. It was later reported that the real reason for the breakup was that Ratikainen, Sepaya, and Verman could no longer come to see eye to eye with Laiho in general. They had simply drifted apart as a band and as friends, so in the interest of all, the band has been dissolved. There is currently a moratorium on using the actual name Children of Bodom for the next 5 years. However, that didn't seem to really stop Alexi at all. Alexi plowed right on through things and found a new bass player, keyboardist, and drummer, forming Bodom After Midnight, who performed their first show, in Finland of course, where they're allowed to have concerts at this time. Holy shit, folks. That took a minute to get through. I'm surprised that with all the material that I had to cover, I kept that to under one lifetime. Fucking amazing. Thank you very much for sitting with me through this and being willing to listen to all I have to ramble on and say about my favorite form of heavy metal ever, modern melodic death metal. The impact that Children of Bodom has had on MMDM and, well, heavy metal in general is almost incalculable. They and the In Flames were the pioneers, are, frankly, the pioneers of the genre known as melodic death metal. It would not exist without those two bands. Bodom's impact on music is in fact the kind of iconic saga that you'll hear people talking about 50 years from now in conservatories, I'm sure. Now, I was going to make this a positive end to Enter the Void, but sadly, we do have to talk about something real quick here. Unfortunately, between the time that I started this episode and finished filming it, Alexi Laiho died. Alexi Laiho is one of the 2 reasons I got into melodic death metal, between him and Anders Frieden of In Flames. The loss is incalculable. The man was a giant, a legend, and a master shredder. Had easily 10 albums to his name. What else can you say about him? By all accounts, he was a good person, a good stepfather, and a great bandmate. Until next time, please feel free to enter the void.